Our first 2018 town meeting. Thank you all for being here. In respect to decorum for the meeting, we ask you please silence your phones or perhaps turn them off. Okay. And at this time, I'll ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our next town meeting will occur, our next group meeting will occur with the Citizens Advisory Committee on Tuesday, October 16th at 7:30 p.m. here in this room. The Quarterly Planning Commission meeting will occur on October 29th here at 7:30 p.m. The next town council meeting as scheduled is listed for November 5th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. When the new board gets organized, there might be an announcement related to an additional meeting for the month of October, as per the request of the mayor. We'll go through, and I'll defer to you, Mr. Sweeney. How do you want to handle this?
Just go through and towards the time we're in.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, so I trust everyone's had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes from the last town meeting. Are there any modifications, changes, or enhancements that anyone would like to see? No?
I had none.
Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the town meeting minutes from September 4th as presented.
Great, the motion's been made by Commissioner Ritz. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Sweeney. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we now turn to the deputy for the deputy's report.
Good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Deputy White House, Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
This is going to be the September 2018 town report. Calls for service, 24 911s, basically, again, still from the Daughters of Charity. I thought we had it figured out, but guess we don't. For the traffic stats for the month, we had 81 traffic stops. Issued some parking citation, vehicle parked on a sidewalk. The arrests and violations, we had 9 traffic arrests, 3 criminal, a juvenile arrest, and 3 warrants and a criminal summons served. It's done for those calls for service, special assignments. You can kind of read those. I filed for charges on a couple cases there, hit and run and theft investigation. Also, there was a subject was charged in town with child abuse. He's currently being held at the detention center with no bond. Flipping it over, additional information. The drug box was emptied. There was like 4 bags full of prescription medications. I think I even, actually I did. I went to someone's house and actually did a pickup because it was big. I asked that they don't put large quantities in there without being in a bag because it's just easier for us, so I'd rather go pick it up. For here, I see what I did for the month. 12 reports. I had 5 court days. The stats for the month, what Ted had. And also something that's not on there is we're continuing to do the school safety checks where we go into the schools. So we're going to go inside the schools. We're still doing that at the elementary school and at Mother Seton School. Kind of check in. They give us a little badge to swipe. We go in, check in with the office staff, and we do a loop inside the schools. Try to do that 2 times a day with morning and pickup. So quick and easy. Any questions for me at all or concerns or anything?
The usual question, were any of the accidents or incidents related to the construction
No.
site down by the bridge?
No.
Great. Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions for the deputy?
No.
No, great. Thank you very much,
All right,
sir.
thank you.
Okay. Moving forward, we go to the town manager's report.
Good evening. This is the town manager's report for August of 2018. I'll highlight some areas. First off with the streets, I'd like to reiterate that there is no parking up on East and West Main Street beginning tonight from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and there's a list of streets that there's no parking allowed on. A contractor will be in parking or painting the parking spaces as well as striping some of the roads. There is parking available at the pool parking lot. And we've opened up parking in the community park and Memorial Park as well for tonight only. Back to the streets for August. The contractor blacktop sections of the median strip along East Lincoln Walkway. They perform monthly maintenance checks on the town-owned storm drain inlets and conducted their monthly street sweeping. Related to the park, staff installed a new water fountain at the pool that quit working about mid-August. The contractor installed the blacktop walkway to Emmett Gardens Playground. They are scheduled to finish that remaining part, I believe, either towards the end of this week or next week. Contractor repaired the emergency warning sign at Silo Hill Park. Staff conducted their monthly checks, maintenance checks at the playground equipment, building, fences, roads, ball fields, etc. A quick update on the the Square and Bridge project related to the bridge. I know, it's gonna be a long night. Phase 2 bridge, the phase 2 of opening the other lane is still on track to be completed mid-November, as long as weather permits. We just met with the State Highway last week, and they are aware that the pothole has come back there at the bridge and the steel plates. If phase 2 is not be able to be completed by mid-November, then they have a plan in order to take care of moving the steel plates. Related to the Square project, you'll see a lot of work going on this week. They'll be here every day this week. Weather is good. They should be working on the Square, the masts, all the electric, and finishing up the tree wells. And the trees are slated to go in mid-October. And the contractor is going to complete the weeding of the planter boxes up at the Square by Friday, October 5th for fallen firefighters this weekend. Related to wastewater, we have Rainbow Lake is still at the spillway level of 16.6 feet. We purchased 431,800 gallons of water from the Mount in August. We received about 6.9 inches of rain this month. We still have a surplus of 17.29 inches of rain. At the wastewater treatment plant, we treated an average of 991,000 gallons per day. The maximum level is 750 gallons per day. We consumed 241,360 gallons per day, which means 75.6% of the wastewater treated in the month of August was wild water. We had one spill of untreated sewage in the month of August due to the heavy downpours. It was reported to MDE and the health department. It was approximately 20,000 gallons on August 21st. And I'll just mention that we also had a sanitary overflow September 9th to September 10th. Due to the heavy rainfall, we received about 5.85 inches, and we lost about 68,000 gallons, and that was also reported to MDE and the health department. We did exceed the plant's design capacity 5 times in the month of August. Trash pickup will remain Mondays in the month of October. And then you'll see the list of some of the meetings I attended in the month of August. Just a few noteworthy things. In September, staff worked on preparations for Hurricane Florence. In August, we had over 30 million gallons processed through the wastewater treatment plant, which since the board approved both those projects, is going to help immensely. And then finally, we were notified by MDE that the town will be required to retain the services of a qualified engineer to perform an evaluation of the dam at Rainbow Lake and submit the results of a hydrologic and hydraulic analysis, as well as a dam break analysis by May 1st of 2019. So about mid-November, we're going to advertise for engineering services related to that project, and we'll bring you more information as it gets closer. And that's all that I have.
Great. Are there any questions for the manager related to her report? Yes.
I do. One thing is the grates, those, I guess cast iron are like bright orange and rusted now. Is that on purpose? Is it going to be treated?
I haven't noticed that they're rusted. They are orange, and I believe that's the color they're going to stay. Yeah, that was the design.
Oh, that was the design. Okay, I thought it was rust.
Just
Okay,
a
that-
protective coating. I don't believe it's rust. I can bring it to their attention, have them look, but I don't believe that's what it is.
Well, some like orange mulch, that's what they intended, and that's fine if it's intended. I just wasn't sure
Okay.
because it changed sort of
Right.
overnight. And then the second thing is, Is there any help that we can get through the state of emergency that Governor Hogan issued that would help with our wastewater treatment plan and those issues?
Well, we're applying to MDE, which is the Maryland Department of Environment, for their, once the USDA process is completed, there'll be a partnership hopefully between the federal government, which is USDA, and then the state level of
That's
MDE.
linked to the state of the emergency that was
It's
declared?
it's linked to their Department of Environment. That's where
Okay.
the funding for the infrastructure will hopefully come from.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the manager? No. So quick clarification related to the playground paving. The paving that you're talking about is to bring the grade up so it's ADA compliant to the...
To fix that lip that was mentioned, I
Okay,
believe,
great.
at previous meeting.
Okay, terrific. The next item, the dam review, do we have, pardon the French, do we have a figure for that, or?
We do not. We're going to put it out to bid in November. Our deadline for completion is May of 2019, which unfortunately is this fiscal year. So it was not an item that would have been budgeted for, so we'll have to bring that figure back to the board for approval.
Okay, and regarding the grant that we gave the green light to pursue in the last meeting, has any updates occurred related to that?
Well, yeah, the RFP went out, was advertised. We have 2 pre-bid meetings scheduled this week at the pumping station.
Okay, but for the grant related to the sewer lining in the pumping station?
That's
Is it-
what that is. The grant was for the preliminary engineering report and the environmental studies related to the pumping
So
station.
we did get the grant, I guess that's what,
No, we have to get the bids first.
okay, very good.
And then we'll
Okay.
submit for the grant. But the sewer relining,
Okay.
we just actually signed the contract to begin that work today. I believe that was signed today by the mayor.
Terrific, okay, great, thank you. Okay, moving forward, any other questions to follow up on any of these? Okay, all right, next we turn to the town planner.
So for the Board of Appeals, finished processing a variance application for 55 Second Avenue, which is Lot 24. Attended the Board of Appeals meeting on 8/27 regarding that matter. Received and processed another variance application for 604 East Main Street. Fielded resident questions regarding both variance requests. For the Board of Commissioners, I prepared tonight's staff memo for the public hearing. Community Legacy finalized the grant reimbursement for 25 West Main Street, processed resident reimbursement request for 119 North Seaton Avenue and 16-20 West Main Street. MHT approved the project for 3 West Main Street. Work will commence shortly. Received and processed the Community Legacy grant application for 309 East Main Street. I will say that's a very successful program so far, and we're getting a lot of applications and interest, so that's really good. For municipal separate storm sewer systems, or MS4, which is stormwater, completed the State of Maryland's erosion and sediment control course and received certification. Completed the notice of intent for the next general discharge permit number 13-SF-5501. This permit will be effective from October 31st, 2018 to October 30th, 2023. Started drafting the final report for the general discharge permit, 13 IM 5500. This permit will expire this month on October 30th. And I investigated various stormwater complaints for permits and zoning. I processed 9 zoning permits. Of those, fence ×3, shed, paver, patio, driveway repair ×2, roof repair, and a porch extension. I also processed an infrastructure permit for the demolition of the old Seton Center. As you can see, that's happening right now. Processed and submitted the Frederick County building permit application for a proposed firefighter memorial project. That's been approved. For the sidewalk project, I received and investigated various sidewalk project complaints. We're working with SHA right now to resolve them. And there's a bunch of miscellaneous that I performed, attended some trainings and some grant trainings, so.
Great, okay. Any questions for the planner related to his report?
I didn't have any.
No? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, sir. All right, moving forward, we turn to commissioners' comments. Mr. Ritz?
Oh, yes, Mr. President. I have 2 things. First off, on September 21st, it was a rain date from September 8th. Thank you to the Morning Star. They were an Irish band that performed in the park at the maximum. I'd say there was about 35 people there. It was overcast and damp, and they said it was just like being in Ireland. So thank you to them. Thanks to everyone who attended. Secondly, I'm using my commissioner comments for just that commentary, specifically an incident that occurred at last month's meeting that I feel could have been prevented. During discussion with the town welcome letter, Commissioner Buckman was portrayed as a fool by submitting an incomplete document for consideration. However, after the meeting, I learned the letter was drafted by the Citizens Advisory Committee, not Commissioner Buckman herself, and that there was communication with town staff regarding its contents. It makes me wonder why an ill-prepared document was hastily included in our agenda packet when it's customary to postpone items not ready for discussion. It seems an effort to label Commissioner Buckman a failure and to silence her. The entire discussion for the welcome letter caused unnecessary and awkward tension during that meeting. I hope that going forward, all items for our consideration are vetted equally and that we're not placed in a similar situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Buckman.
I just want to let everyone know that I'm working hand in hand with Wayne Slaughter as we are preparing the Waddle Waddle, which is all proceeds and profits go to the Seton Center, supporting our community. So if you know anyone, we have a 1 mile walk and a 5 mile run. It's going to be Thanksgiving morning. So if you need to get the kids and the family out of the house while you're cooking, or if you want to throw the turkey in and head on down, it's in Community Park. I hope you all will join us. It was great last year and it should be great this year. We serve a breakfast and hot coffee, and we have a beautiful track for runners around the mountain through Scott Run Farm and back. And for the 1 mile waddlers, we will circle in the park twice and come back as a community. And then also, congratulations to Tim and Cliff for the election. I'm so glad you guys are back in. And Joe, there were so many compliments online on Facebook about your Irish event. Everyone thought it was wonderful.
Thank you.
That's all.
Great, okay, thank you. Mr. Blanchard.
Again, just reiterating, congratulations to the elected officials. Thanks for your service. Thanks for running for office. Appreciate that. I know it's a lot of time, so I understand what that's about. I'd also like to thank publicly the election judges on that day. They had a very long day. I know some of the election judges have served with us many, many times, so I definitely appreciate their service. And I do believe that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out voting for the election. I know it wasn't a very good turnout, but we appreciate everybody coming out, vote for us to go back into serving the community. Thank you.
Great, okay. Comments from myself. I was able to attend the 9/11 ethics meeting regarding meetings, how they are run. That was sponsored by the Maryland Municipal League. It was a good meeting. If you've not attended it, I recommend it. It was one night, 2.5, 3 hours, but worth the endeavor. It did clarify a number of things regarding things such as the letter that you guys were talking about for folks who are moving into the community. The other piece is I was able to attend the Moore Board of Directors meeting. I'm trying to get them to attend Community Day, and there's a possibility that they might be partnering with us at a future time on a grant. So that was encouraging. Beyond that, I want to thank everybody who voted, as Commissioner Sweeney said. It wasn't a huge turnout, but it is appreciated to those who did turn out, especially our election judges who sat there the entire day and validated, the process. I'm of two minds always on these low turnout elections. One, there might be a view that it's ambivalence. The other is maybe they're satisfied. I think real politics says it's probably somewhere in between. So we're put on notice as commissioners that we have a huge responsibility. I think we all understand that. I'm very humbled for, again, having the opportunity to serve as a commissioner. So thank you to everybody who showed up, and thank you all for your support as we move down the road. Now we turn to the mayor for his comments. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. It was a short month for me. I was out in Colorado visiting grandchildren, watching college football and rugby up in Aspen. It was a wonderful experience. September 5th, I attended the Frederick County Office of Economic Development, their Municipal Impact Award Dinner. Emmitsburg received an award for success on the downtown grants and property facade improvements project. We're going into, I think, about our 6th year of that, and it's getting to where we're about $500,000 worth of improvements have been done downtown matching funds. And we thank all the property owners who've been there and our staff for all the hard work they've done on putting this together. Thank you to our, election judges, Sharon Hain, Barbara Whedon, Charlotte Mazaleski, and Tammy May. That's a very long day from 6-something in the morning till about 9 o'clock at night, and they did a terrific job. They're very polite and courteous and welcomed everybody. I spoke at the Community Unity Celebration at Trinity Methodist Church on a Sunday, and some things that are happening in our community and that are not from people in our community, but went very well. And to our commissioners, O'Donnell and Sweeney, thank you for stepping up to serve again. We really appreciate it. It takes a lot of time, and thank you for the sacrifice for you and for your family. I was down as a guest of Roger Wilson, Frederick County, All Around the Town show last week, and that will be coming to your local neighborhood theater very soon. And I think it'll be it's a good thing that we get to speak about our towns, and wonderful experience down with Roger Wilson. And this Sunday, yesterday, I spoke at the first anniversary at the Emmitsburg Baptist Church and welcomed them here as a member of our community. And Commissioner Buckman, you mentioned Wayne Slaughter, but he's with the Emmitsburg Business and Professional
Yeah, he's with the
Association.
EBPA.
And they're the ones really ramrodding it this year, is that correct?
We're working as a team to make sure it gets done properly, and
Okay.
it's very successful.
So you're working with the EBPA?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Thank you to the Emmitsburg Business Professional Association, and thank you to Liz Buckman, who stepped in at the last minute last year and pulled it off, and it was a wonderful success, and will be again this year. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so we have heard the mayor's comments, you've heard the commissioner's comments. I'm going to turn to the public comments, but I want to clarify something so everybody has an understanding. We have a nice crowd tonight. So everybody understands there are two issues at hand here when it comes to public speaking related to our meeting, so everyone has clarity. I have a number of people who are signed up talking about a specific agenda item. Now, you have two options. You can provide comment before that occurs, okay, and general public comment. And this is usually the time that anybody has the opportunity to speak about any topic of concern of theirs related to the town. But oftentimes people reserve their speaking for when we get to that specific agenda item. So I hope we have clarity on that. So for example, if someone signed up to speak about a zoning issue, we have on our agenda a specific zoning issue. So you would be given the opportunity after that, as someone who is signed up, to speak to that issue. So right now, when I'm asking for public comments, I have individuals who've signed on for agenda items and others who have not signed on for agenda items, but general public comment. So I hope I've not muddied the waters in understanding where we are. I'm going to ask you to hold off, actually. I'm going to ask you to hold off. Thank you. Okay, so here's what we have for our agenda items. Okay? We have swearing in of new commissioners. We have the reorganization of the Board of Commissioners. We've postponed what was scheduled as our third item. We have a public hearing on a zoning map amendment, at which time people will again be given the opportunity to speak to the zoning issue. All right. When we conclude that hearing, we then go to the included in that, we can have consideration of the rezoning of lots 10, 11, 15, and the west half of lot 12. So people are also signed up for that zoning issue. We have the review of ethics complaint procedures as proposed by the Ethics Commission, which is a separate item. And finally, we have a discussion related to possible consideration of a request for hunting at the Scott Road Farm. Okay, so I just want to make sure no one's going to be prevented from speaking. I just want to make sure everybody knows when we're speaking. The other part is in the reorganization of the board, there's a very distinct possibility there will be somebody else sitting here running the meeting. So I want to make sure that we have continuity as we move through for everybody's sake who's here tonight, who's not usually here. So with that in mind, I have Mr. Swope signed up for trailers. Would you like to reserve that comment for when we get to that agenda item? Okay, very good.
Not on the agenda.
Okay, so for public comment to that effect. So I'll invite you up because we will hope to see that perhaps at another meeting. So why don't I invite you up now? I'm sorry. Thank you for the correction.
Hi. Jay Swope.
Yes, sir.
You want my address or anything?
Yes, sir. Yes, please.
209 Sandy Spring Lane, Thurmont, Maryland.
Thank you, sir.
I own property here in Emmitsburg, in your industrial park district. And what I'm asking for is to be able to be put on, I guess, the agenda for our next meeting dealing with the zoning of the language in the zoning for the trailers. I believe I'm not the only one here, I'm sure, but is there more so?
That's perfect. Just for absolute clarity, you're interested in seeing trailers used on property. Is that accurate to say?
That's accurate to say.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's just a request asking if we could have this discussion next month, right?
Yes, sir. Great. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, signed up, I have Sarah Miller related to zoning. That's the comment?
Now, I do have a specific I want to talk about, but I do want to thank the town and all for the playground down in Emmett Gardens with the walkway. I do appreciate that. But mine is in reference to another subject.
Terrific. Thank you, ma'am. That's great. Okay. Mr. Wantz, you'll be speaking to the agenda item. Is that correct? Great. Thank you. Okay. I have Karen. I'm afraid I can't read your last name. I'm sorry.
After having heard what you said, perhaps it's premature. I just was told when I applied for the ability to have lodging.
Okay, ma'am, I'm going to ask you to come up to the microphone because it sounds like this would be a comment piece. So if I could invite you up to the dais here, the podium, and thank you. And so we're trying to capture it on the record, so I'll ask you to please repeat your name and your address, and we'll start from there.
I'm Karen Bothwell, and in May I took title to 113 East Main Street, which unofficially was being used for month-to-month tenancy, and I applied to the town for the ability to run it as a lodging facility in the name of Danielson Inn, and I was told that I had the ability to speak today when I spoke to planning, and I just wanted to tell you that I hope to make a great contribution to the community, and that I want to do everything in an appropriate fashion so that my presence will be a plus for other business owners and that we will cooperate with one another.
Terrific. Thank you very much for coming here. We appreciate that. Okay, we turn to Mr. Frank Davis. Captain Frank Davis, would that be better?
Frank Davis, 28 West Main Street. It's something I'd like to have you add to your agenda, or at least consider adding to the agenda for next month, would be the zoning of Emmett Gardens. Recently, we had I had a friend who I was trying to help with an issue they had with zoning, and after walking through the neighborhood and talking to all the residents there, they feel they're kind of been cheated in a way, because the zoning that has been developed for Emmitsburg was developed for new developments. Emmett Gardens has been there since the 1940s, and the zoning the residential zoning doesn't really apply to them. Their lots are all different sizes, and back then there was no regulations when that development was built. So we just would like you to consider some options for that area, and possibly zone it somehow differently than what's currently there, to give the residents an opportunity to build or use their area for different things.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. All right. Ms. Diane Walbrecker, Commissioner Emeritus.
Hello, Diane Walbrecker, 535 West Main Street. A couple things. Morningstar Band was very good. That was a nice thing. Thanks for the waddle. I'm going to come out and waddle this year, so
Good.
I think that's
Dress
great.
warm, it's cold.
Just what?
Dress warmly.
Yeah, I will. I thought that was a good question about the disaster, and I'm not sure whether there's any hazard mitigation grants available, because those are statewide, even if the county is not declared. So I don't know. And I had a question about flood insurance, because I did write to everybody, and I didn't hear back from anybody about the wanting to promote flood insurance. I understand from reading the minutes before that you had a discussion about not advocating for any particular type of insurance or insurance company, but flood insurance is sold by anybody. So I wasn't sure why we couldn't at least make a mention of it when it was so appropriate for the time with Hurricane Florence coming in. So anyway, I was a little disappointed by that, because I think by the next time your bills come out, it won't be as applicable, because hurricane season will be over. But
So the question that I have, and I apologize for not getting back to you, I'll say stack the menu, but no excuse.
okay.
The FEMA program, is it commercial businesses that provide the coverage, or is it
Yes.
the federal government providing the coverage? So what's the federal government's role?
The
That's what I
National
guess I should
Flood
be asking.
Insurance Program
Okay,
is sold through any insurance agent. Anybody can sell you national flood insurance,
okay.
all right? But it's backed by the federal government. The federal government is the one that makes sure that the bills get paid, essentially. So
Is-
they subsidize it.
Is there a federal clearinghouse for information? For
Mm-hmm.
example, could we reference somebody to a federal website
Oh,
and
absolutely.
let the federal government sort it out let them sort it out through the federal website?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
because I think
Absolutely.
that might resolve what some members of the board had concern with, including myself, about not trying to put one business ahead of another. But I think if it's the Fed who's driving the bus on this, I think that layer buffers us in an appropriate
It's the
way.
feds. And most people don't realize that you're not covered for flood with your regular homeowner's insurance policy.
right.
So I just wanted to bring awareness of it, since I actually purchased it myself. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Okay, we now turn to Barbara Entwistle. Is this specific to an agenda item? Would you prefer? No, it's not. Very good. Okay, coming up.
Thank you. My name is Barb Entwistle. I'm actually an attorney, practice in Maryland and in Pennsylvania, and I'm here tonight on behalf of William Kuhn, who owns his place. This is one of the businesses over on your industrial zone area over on Creamery Way, or actually Creamery, well, the Creamery Way, and there's Creamery something else. In any event, he received a notice of a violation. And the violation was for having a storage trailer on the back of his building, which he's had there for years. And so he received this violation and contacted me. I contacted Mr. Golden, and I got a copy of the regulations, and there is in fact a regulation. It's at 1524, let's see, it's 1524.020 and the subsections therein that prohibit a storage trailer from being on any zoning lot in Emmitsburg. Any zoning lot, doesn't matter if it's commercial, industrial, residential, whatever. And so I had had some conversations with William Kuhn and some other owners of the other businesses that are in the industrial area, and some of them have storage trailers on there and have had them for some time. The thought was to request that we be put on the agenda for the next month to propose a text amendment to this regulation that might allow a trailer to be in an industrial zoned area, perhaps under some circumstances, which would mean it was not visible or somehow modifying that. But it seems to be very important for some of the industrial owners over there to have this ability and not have to build a whole new building there for their storage items. So we'd like to be on the agenda for next month if that's acceptable. And I believe I'll be talking to Mr. Swope because I think he might be one of the individuals over in there as well, so.
Terrific. Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Appreciate your message. Okay, moving forward, Mr. Baldacchino, it's specifically related to the agenda item for your signing up. Okay, very good. And Alan Riley? Same thing. Same thing. Very good. Okay, thank you. All right, so we've moved through our public comments. I hope the board recognizes there's a definite interest in seeing a specific agenda item for our next town meeting. Okay, so with that in mind, we now turn to, well, for clarity's sake, we do not have any administrative business at this time. We do not have any consent agenda items at this time, so now we turn to our treasurer's report. Mr. Blanchard.
Mr. President. Town of Emmitsburg cash activity as of September 25th, 2018. $5,543,173. Cash balance September 1st, 2018. Operating balance forward $5,563,191. As always, we have the top 10 check amounts, the vendor names, the descriptions, and the check dates, etc.
Okay, any questions for the treasurer or staff related to any of these items? No? Okay, very good. All right, is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
The motion has been made by Commissioner Buckman, seconded by Commissioner Ritz. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, sir. Okay, we now turn to the Planning Commission report.
I do not have the minutes here. Zach, I don't know if they were turned in yet.
They were not turned in yet.
Okay, I don't know if you can give a little brief what
Sure.
we did. We had a
A summary?
discussion on garbage for the Port Dietrich.
Okay.
So the Planning Commission met basically to review and comment on the proposal to amend the Frederick County waste plan. Basically, Fort Detrick has asked to be a part of that waste plan, and according to Maryland law, all of the planning commissions through municipalities have 30 days to comment. The board did recommend approval of the amendments.
Okay. Any questions related to the report? Commissioner Buckman, you have a sign up to the crowd saying, "I faint when I'm hot." Is there a way we can turn the AC up
If
so
you take a
we?
brief recess, I can go get a fan. We cannot adjust the air in here. We just met with the county. We're having some serious heating
Okay.
and air problems.
We can open the windows as well?
We can open the windows.
Okay, so maybe we should do that. Terrific. Okay. So let's move to a 2-minute adjournment.
That's fine. I'll
Okay,
go get
a brief recess for 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Are you okay?
I just have, yeah, I faint when I'm,
Okay, that would be something we don't want to have happen.
it would be embarrassing.
I'm going to turn it off. Tim.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we return from our adjournment. We do want to make a public hearing notice, and this relates to the zoning item. This announces that we will be doing it tonight, but we have an obligation to announce it. So I'll provide this announcement at this time. Public hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that the Emmitsburg Board of Commissioners will hold a public hearing at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, October 1st, 2018, at the town office located at 300A South Seaton Avenue, Emmitsburg, Maryland, 21727. The purpose of the hearing is to inform and to take public comment in regard to a zoning map amendment request to rezone lots 10, 11, 15, and the western half of 12 as shown on the revised plat of Emmett Gardens, recorded in plat book number 3, folio 52, from R1 low-density residential to B1 neighborhood commercial. Okay, so that's our announcement. All right, so we resume our meeting after our adjournment, and we now turn to agenda item number 1, which relates to the swearing in of new commissioners and a presentation by Mr. Briggs, Mayor Briggs. Presentation?
Let's work with swearing in.
Swearing in, very good, okay.
Okay,
Where would you like us, sir?
I'd like, if you'll join me, Mr. O'Donnell, up here in front.
We don't do both at the time. We can do a same time.
All right, it's gonna get confusing. I'm gonna ask you to pause, give your name.
Okay.
I'm gonna start here. Raise your right hand.
I, Timothy Jude O'Donnell,
I, Clifford Lee Sweeney,
And I'm going to read the rest. Do affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland and support the Constitution, laws thereof, and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of Commissioner in the Town of Emmitsburg, Maryland, according to the Constitution and laws of the state and charter and code of the Town of Emmitsburg.
I do.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I do.
Congratulations. Congratulations, both of you gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Did you get a picture? You want these signed? They might want to change
Should sign them now.
Sure better?
Yeah,
Sure better, okay. Very
Can I
good.
have your
Sure.
sign there?
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. What am I signing?
You're lucky. You're sleeveless.
Thank you, sir.
Wait a minute, I'm working.
Hey,
Did you just quit?
where did Clifford go?
Did you use the restroom?
Tissue.
That was just-
Okay.
Okay.
We
Okay.
can wait for Mr. Sweeney to return. Okay, there we go.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we're okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you very
Okay.
much. If I may have the floor again. after you.
Sure, I'm going to turn ourselves now to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 2, we're going to have the mayor's recommendations for reorganization of the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. As is customary, every year, the mayor recommends his officers for the next year, and I'm going to pass these over, if I may. I've talked to everybody on the board about.
Can you speak
Where
up,
we're-
please?
Mr. Mayor, we're having
Okay.
trouble hearing you, sir.
Sorry, there.
We can't. It's
Apologize.
difficult to hear with the fan.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right.
Well played, sir.
My recommendations for this year are President, Board of Commissioners is Clifford Sweeney. Vice President, Board of Commissioners, and Planning Commissioner Liaison, Glenn Blanchard. Treasurer, Board of Commissioners, Timothy O'Donnell. I've asked Parks, Joseph Ritz III, again, to, after the success he had, keep that going to handle Parks and Recreations Committee liaison. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Buckman if she would again handle Citizens Advisory Commission liaison for this year, if it would. Go ahead.
Okay, so the mayor's put this in front of us, his recommendations. Does anybody have any thoughts, concerns, changes that they want to see? Or are we willing to move forward with this plan? Commissioner Buckman?
I would like to see a little bit more variety. I was hoping that Joe would be considered for vice president because he's been Citizen Advisory, he's been Parks and Rec, and I think he deserves a turn at something else, either treasurer or vice president. And I mean, I understand why I would be kept Citizens Advisory Committee because I have a great relationship with my committee and the community. But I would also like some variety.
Thank
Commissioner
you,
Ritz?
thank you, Commissioner Buckman, for your suggestion for me being vice president. I'm comfortable with Commissioner Blanchard as vice president. I don't know. I'm humbled that you would say that. Thank you. I think maybe in the future that'd be a consideration. I don't want it at this time.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, though. Are you comfortable being on the Citizens Advisory Committee again?
I love my committee.
Okay.
I'm used to it, but I was hoping to have a go at Parks and Rec maybe.
Okay. Commissioner Ritz?
But
would you-
I won't be bitter if I stay as Citizens Advisor.
Okay.
Do-
Commissioner
would-
Ritz, any thoughts on that?
Would you like Parks and Recreation Committee?
How do you feel? Because you did very wonderfully at the job. I mean, we've seen more activity in the park than we have in a long time.
If I have Parks and Recreation Committee for one more year, hopefully the rain won't be against me next summer, and we can have some more concerts in the park. But anybody could do that, really. I'd like to see that through, or hope
Are you
that
okay
somebody can
staying
see.
Parks and Rec?
Sure, I'd like another go at that.
Okay.
All right.
Then I'm okay with the mayor's recommendations.
Very good. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir?
If this goes down the way it is, thank you for your 5.5 years as board president.
You're very welcome.
It's been a long time, so you've done a great job. You've been board president since I've been here. So.
Oh dear. Well, I hope I haven't ruined it for you.
So thank
you. You're kind. To that end, it appears as if, Mr. Mayor, you got your recommendations as presented. We'll take a vote in a moment. Mr. Sweeney, I will offer this to you. If I can be a resource to you, truthfully, please let me know what I can do for you, and I'm happy to help you with any of the procedure. But I will happily hand the gavel over to you in a few moments. So, with that in mind, is there a motion to accept the recommendations from the mayor as presented related to reorganization of the board?
I'll make a motion to accept the mayor's recommendations for the Board of Commissioners at the October 1st town meeting.
Very good. Is there a second for the motion made by Commissioner Ritz?
I'll second that.
The motion's been made by Commissioner Ritz. It's been seconded by Commissioner Buckman. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. All right.
Are we doing the scramble?
Yeah, we're doing the scramble. All right.
You could have stayed still and just switched the name.
No. I like it down at the end of the line. As is tradition, Mr. Sweeney, I turn the gavel over to you, sir, and all the equipment and power.
I'm trying to fulfill this shoe.
Okay.
Glenn, aren't you moving?
Huh?
Are you moving?
I think I'll just stay here.
Mr. Commissioner Sweeney, if I may say
Slide the
something.
names.
One second.
Slide the names.
Old neighborhood.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Oh, I see.
Uh,
That goes to Glenn.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
There's the Glen.
That goes. to Glenn.
Oh, yeah.
Treasurer. I see.
That's for Glenn. I
I'll
feel
let
like
you-
the
I'll just
Three
hold this
Stooges.
over. Yeah, this is-
That's yours.
Oh, I see.
Very good. Should be all the right titles.
There you go. See all the way down
Okay.
there.
There we go.
Mr. President, may I?
Mr. Mayor, you have a comment?
Yes, if I may, I want to thank Commissioner Donald for 5 years of service, and I look forward to working with you in the future. We've done a lot of things together. You supported me with the downtown square and everything down there, and just thought we might give somebody a little chance at the mic. And I want to thank you, Cliff, for saying yes, that you'd like to do this. If I may, just one thing, we have need of a second meeting. I kind of hit you as you sat down this month, October 15th, the second meeting, and it's not for the big items. It's just we have some checklist things to get off, and we'll go over the agenda later on. But we need a second meeting this month, and we need a hire at the wastewater treatment plant to come before you. And so there's a lot of little things we have to get off, but I would not have any of the big things we talked about earlier in the meeting until November. And then there you go from there. Okay. That correct?
We need a motion for that. Have another meeting.
At the end,
At the
when you
end,
go to
yeah.
set the agenda, we'll set that one first and then go to the next one.
Alrighty,
That's okay?
that's fine. Alright, I'll try to fill Tim's shoes. It'll take me a little while, but I'll try to get into it here. Next agenda item number 4, is a public hearing on the zoning map amendment request to rezoning lots 10, 11, 15, and the western half of lot 12 as shown on the revised plan of Emmett Gardens from low-density residential R1 to neighborhood commercial B1.
Mr. Sweeney, could I make a recommendation?
Yes.
It's advisable at this time that we would have a recess of the town meeting and then adjourn and have the hearing.
Okay.
That's a thought.
Alrighty. All in favor of recess? I have to have a motion to recess.
I'll make
Aye.
a motion to recess. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to support it.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to recess.
I need a second.
Oh, I'm second the motion, sorry.
Motion's been made to recess the town meeting and seconded. Is all in favor of the motion? Please say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion carries 5-0 to recess the town meeting. We will now go into the public hearing. Public hearing meeting. Zach, you got a presentation for the
Yes.
public hearing?
Mr. President, would you? Yeah, Mr. Clapp would like to do the oath.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Clapp.
Give an oath to everybody who's going to testify, and so I would make an announcement. Anybody who's going to testify should raise, and you read that.
Anybody that is here to testify at the public hearing needs to, do you solemnly declare and confirm under the penalty?
Please just stand and raise the right hand.
Okay. Anybody's here for the zoning for the public hearing, please stand. Who's going to be speaking? Sarah, that's fine. You can stay there. Can you raise your right hand, please? Okay, do you solemnly declare and confirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is true and correct? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. President, would you like me to restate the purpose of the hearing?
Yes.
The purpose of the hearing is to inform and take public comment in regard to a zoning map amendment request to rezone lots 10, 11, 15, and the western half of 12 as shown on the revised plat of Emmett Gardens, recorded in plat book number 3, folio 52, from R1 low density residential to B1 neighborhood commercial. The property address, which I will state, is 602 East Main Street. So everything I say from this point will be that. The applicant is Mr. Joseph Baldacchino. The owner is the Sarah E. Baldacchino Trust. Public notice was posted on the property on September 5th and in the Frederick News Post on September 6th and 13th of 2018. Please bear with me. I have a lot of reading to do for the record, just basically giving background. The Board of Commissioners forwarded this request to the Town's Planning Commission for review and comment at their July 9th, 2018 meeting. The Planning Commission reviewed the proposed amendment requests at their July 23rd, 2018 meeting. The Commission recommended approval of the requests with the following findings of fact. Schools. There will be no impact on schools as there is no additional residential component proposed for 600-602. Fire, rescue, and police services. Protective services can be provided by the Vigilant Hose Fire Company and Ambulance Company 26. The Frederick County Sheriff provides police services in the town. No additional residential density is anticipated, so there should be minimal impact from the rezoning on these protective services. Libraries. There would be no or minimal impact on public libraries as a result of the rezoning because there is no additional residential component proposed. Parks and recreation facilities. There would be no or minimal impact on public parks and recreational facilities because there is no additional residential component proposed. Water and sewer. 600-602 is currently served by public water from the Emmitsburg water system and public sewer from the Emmitsburg wastewater system that has been significantly upgraded since 2015 as part of the Emmitsburg wastewater treatment plant and other infrastructure improvements. There is no significant difference in the number of water and sewer taps required for B1 zoning versus R1 zoning of 600-602. And it already has existing connections and will be likely reuse existing structures. Other public facilities. Gettysburg Hospital is the closest major medical facility. The Emmitsburg Community Center, Senior Center, and child care facilities provide excellent support services for the community. It would not be negatively impacted by the rezoning. If rezoned and used for hospice care or a similar use, 600-602 will be another important community service asset. The Daughters of Charity facilities provide significant health and financial support services to the Emmitsburg community. Present and future transportation patterns. East Main Street, or Route 140, is a state principal arterial roadway, and First Avenue is a local roadway. The rezoning of 600-602 is not expected to generate significant additional traffic to this area. The State Highway Administration will be adding sidewalks along both sides of Route 140, therefore enhancing pedestrian access to 600-602. The road system is adequate to serve 600-602 if rezoned. Adequate access to 600-602 already exists from East Main Street extended from the prior dental office use. Compatibility with existing and proposed development for the area. As previously stated, the immediate area and the rezoning neighborhood of 600-602 is characterized by the general commercial and neighborhood commercial zoning and land uses. 600-602 is directly across from the largest commercial retail area in the town. 600-602 is located on a corner lot bordered by East Main Street Extended and First Avenue and is well distanced from residential neighbors. The adjacent property to the west across First Avenue, 514 East Main Street, was rezoned B1 as part of the 2015 comprehensive plan. There is a wide driveway separating the building at 600-602 from its closest residential neighbor to the east. There is an undeveloped lot part of 600-602 to the south behind the former dental office residence that separates it from other neighbors bordering on First Avenue. The B1's rezoning of 600-602 will allot for its compatible use with the existing development of the area and the character of the neighborhood. A professional office use under B1 zoning provides an excellent transition between the low-density residential character of Emmett Gardens and the general retail commercial character of the commercial/retail center across East Main Street Extended. Both areas are planned to remain as now developed under the 2015 comprehensive plan. The requirement of the commercial district buffer ordinance adopted in 2015, which is code section 17-20.090, will further ensure land use compatibility with adjoining land uses. The relationship of the proposed amendment to the town's comprehensive plan. The major guiding tenets of the 2015 Comprehensive Plan for Growth of the town until 2030 included encouraging infill growth and pursuing economic opportunities. The B1 rezoning of 600-602 will constitute an infill of desirable economic growth in an existing structure on public utilities that will provide valuable services and expanded tax base. This type of development is entirely consistent with the 2015 Comprehensive Plan. Lastly, the Planning Commission also agreed that there was a mistake made during the approval of the existing zoning classification. They said that the Board of Commissioners would have rezoned this property to B1 during the comprehensive rezoning if they were made aware of its history as a dental office. That is the mistake. That is the end of the finding of facts. I thought it was important to read the B1 possibilities that could go if something would happen to the next owner. Let's see. Excuse me one second. There we go. It is important to note all of the uses permitted in the B1 Neighborhood Business District, which include lodging, bed and breakfast, rooming house, small-scale retail business and service providers. Drive-through service is not allowed. Food service, such as, but not limited to, restaurants, coffee shops, and similar uses, either as a principal use or as one use within the mixed-use structure, such as convenience store. Drive-through service is not allowed. Business and professional office, medical and dental offices, clinics, law offices, insurance and real estate offices, banks, finance, consultant, utility company offices, and the like, animal hospitals and clinics with no open kennels, children's nursery, pre-kindergarten, and other private schools, accessory uses in buildings, business and advertising signs, public building signs, or bulletin boards when attached to a building pertaining to the use of the property on which the sign is located. A monument sign is allowed, and residential use in existence as of January 1, 2015 may continue. The Board of Commissioners voted to hold a public hearing on the zoning amendment at their September 4th, 2018 meeting. If recommending approval, the board must include the finding of facts, not necessarily finding of facts that the Planning Commission just found, and state if there was a mistake and or change in neighborhood characteristics. And that's all I have. And as you can see on the screen, that is the proposed property.
Can I ask a question?
I think we need to make a motion before we have any discussion, correct?
Mr. Sweeney, after the planner presents, it would be an opportunity. I mean, we're not accepting anything. He's just reviewing. So if you want to take questions, it's within your purview. You can do it.
How about the public comment? Do we do that now?
Yes.
Yeah, I would recommend that, yes.
Okay,
But if you want to address the question first from the commissioner, that might be just a quick question, and then hear the public comment. That might be appropriate first.
Okay, Commissioner Buckman.
There was a lot said, so maybe you already said this, but so we're looking at potentially changing the zoning for where the little marker is, but does that also change the zoning for the next two lots to the right?
So it's going to be where it's shown, that's the whole property, and a little bit of lot 12 there.
Right. So will it affect the other houses? Are they allowed to have different zoning too, or is it just that house?
It's just that specific property there.
Okay.
If approved, a fence will be required, a 6-foot fence, which abuts the residential, the neighbors.
Mr. Sweeney, may I
Yes
ask a
or
question?
no?
Mr. Golden, a question. One thing that I lost in the message, monument signs. Will this site be allowed to have a monument sign, or will it be not allowed to have a monument sign? That was unclear to me, I'm afraid. And if you could give me where you were on the page, because I lost that, I'm afraid.
Sure. 1 second.
Sure. Thank you.
1720. Okay, it's going to be 1720.020. And then it's going to be letter G. And it says business. So this is permitted by use, or permitted by right, excuse me. Business and advertising signs, public building signs or bulletin boards, when attached to a building pertaining to the use of the property on which the sign is located, provided that they meet all the requirements in Chapter 15, which that's the building code. A monument sign is allowed, however, it must meet the requirements of Section 15-.16.030I and L regarding the sign location. So that's the building code.
Okay, so for the clarification of exactly what a monument sign is, could you add to that, if you would?
I'll read the definition.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
We don't have a definition.
Yeah, there's no definition in the zoning code.
Oh, okay. Just my
Let me look at
concern-
signs. Usually it'd be under monument.
Sure, okay.
Is this referring to just signage
Yes.
ordinances?
hmm It would be in the zoning.
I guess what I'm looking for is the size and scope of a sign that would be permitted on that,
Oh, okay.
at that site.
Sure.
In fairness to the community.
And the sign, so usually it's in the building code, which it's usually in the zoning code, so. It's 15.16, that's the sign code. There are a lot of variables, so I'll try to give you the best answer possible. Okay, here we go.
There actually is a definition for a freestanding monument sign, means a sign which is supported by uprights, columns upon the ground, and not attached to the building.
Okay.
And that would be in 15.16020's definitions.
Is there a height restriction?
It depends on the zone. So you're looking.
So for what we're proposing, what would the restriction be?
That's in the village.
So we have to flip back and forth between your sign code and your zoning code, because certain signs are allowed in one zone and not in another.
So it depends on the use. So if it's going to be a home occupation, there's going to be a certain square footage, community square footage. And it
Okay.
depends on if it's a contractor, monument sign. There's so many variables. So do you want to give a specific the sign ordinance itself is very outdated, and that's one thing I am going to be working on in the future. So you have to give specifics because there's so many variables. If you look
Okay,
on
so-
page 103,
My concern is this. When one drives on 15 South or from Frederick 15 North, there is a massive Burger King sign that is 40 stories tall, and it illuminates the countryside like a full moon. And if that's considered a monument sign, I don't know if it's in our best interest to allow that on a property of that scale. Now, I couldn't imagine that the use proposed would have that, but if there's an opportunity, some owner at some future time would have that would take advantage of that, I'll say.
So for an individual business which may fit under the definition of what's going to go there, I'd have to see the variables. It says 50 community square area, sign area, square footage. So it's a pretty large sign.
Which doesn't seem proportionate for the rest of a residential neighborhood.
Did you say 50 feet?
50 square
50
feet.
square feet.
So 5 feet by 10 feet.
Right, and for a monument sign, that height includes the base of your sign, so it would be the entire height.
Okay, so still would be rather sizable and potentially disruptive. I mean, I think if we were to
Scale it down.
step back from that, and if that were disallowed and brought back for discussion, I think that might be a better fit. Or if the proposer is willing to modify that, I just don't want to see, the 10-foot by 5-foot mega sign dominating front yards on the street. I think the use is presented, I could stand behind, but the signage piece is a serious concern.
Right, because if you make a change in your sign ordinance, it's going to affect everybody in that you
Correct.
can't spot change a sign ordinance.
Right, no, and I understand that. So my thought is perhaps the applicant might consider a modification there.
They can,
But that would affect your current applicant, but if there's a future applicant, I don't know that you could restrict that future applicant. It is for discussion, I think. It's a good
Sure,
question.
Sure. Okay. Mr. Sweeney?
We do need to update our sign, because we had another thing for temporary sign, for the Heritage Day, that we already purchased and couldn't put in because it's not allowed in our zoning in Emmitsburg. So we do need to update I think we should update that soon. Because the business is coming in. We do have other businesses coming in to the community, I hope.
It is on our to-do list as we wrap up some of the things for this year of 2018. It is on the very horizon. It is something that Zach and I have discussed the need for, so it is on our list to do.
Anything else, Mr. O'Donnell?
No, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions before I go and call in the public comment? No?
No, I want to hear what people have to say, the applicant.
Yeah.
Would revising the sign ordinance before the end of this year change your view on the
Mr. Commissioner Ritz, I can tell you that that's just not going to be possible. As difficult as the sign ordinances is, I've been to a couple of workshops at MML, and the intricacies of all sign ordinances, because they are such a hot topic and can get you into a lot of legal hot trouble. It would be something that we would have to work on with Mr. Clapp. We do have some MS4 commitments that we have got to get done by the end of the year. I just don't see how we can get the sign ordinance updated to where it would be sufficient.
Mr. Ritz, I'd say it this way, to answer your question, if the applicant were willing to document a concession in the sign of a size that they would allow on their property, I don't know. I don't even know if that would stand, though, because the issue is, if, I have good faith in the applicant.
yes.
But the next tenant might not be one who shows good faith, and therefore we expose ourselves to a really unhappy aesthetic, potentially.
True. No, I see where you're coming from. I also don't want to hold the process up anymore, though.
Sure. No, I understand. Perhaps we'll let Mr. Sweeney call the...
I believe that the applicant who is now owns the property, and then maybe a new one that's coming in, if they do sell it, knows that, what kind of signage and stuff. I mean, it's to get one of those big signs you were talking about is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't think they're gonna do that to put in for the business that's there. It's for just a regular electronic sign. I do know that the new sign they just put up at the Sportsman's Club, if you go up 116, was $20,000 for that lighted sign out, just for that little light sign out front, to run the electric. It's a lot of money to run, if you go into the bigger signs, and hopefully they won't do that, but I don't look forward for the applicant doing that. But
Right, but we expose ourselves to that concern.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Alrighty. Do you have any more questions?
No, sir.
Glenn?
No, I just like to hear from the applicant personally.
Alrighty, I'll call up the agenda person who wants to speak, Joseph Balacino.
My name is Joseph Baldacchino.
Balacchino.
My address is 12508 Killian Lane, Bowie, Maryland, 20715. I'm representing my mother's trust, the Sarah E. Baldacchino Trust. Should I repeat a little bit of what I've told you before, what it's about? My parents, my father was a dentist in town, and when he first came to town back in the early 50s, he established a residence and a dentist office on West Main Street. But around in the late 50s, started building the present building that we're discussing now in Emmett Gardens, and he sold his old property to the fire company. It's part of what Vigilant Host Company is now, and built a combined residence and dental office located where the map shows. And at that time, it was not within the city limits. There was a dairy farm across the street, and apparently there was no problem putting a residence and a dental office there. And then sometime subsequently, it became zoned residential, and he was still practicing dentistry, and so it was grandfathered until he retired. But he was oblivious of, when he retired, he wasn't about to sell it. He's going to continue to live there, which he did for about another 30 years. And so he was kind of unaware of the zoning issue, and by the time they established the plan in 2015, he had kind of transferred his financial dealings to me, but I was in Bowie and wasn't aware of any of this going on. So it just fell through the cracks. But as the time came to start considering selling this property to somebody new, we always kind of assumed, since it was constructed to be both a dental office and a residence, that would be, or something very similar, would be the most productive usage of it. And then it happened that a doctor who is here present this evening, Dr. Alan Riley, contacted us and expressed some interest in establishing an office for himself as a physician and using the residential rooms. It's basically a 3-bedroom home with some other large rooms to be a hospice facility. So we thought that would be good for the community, and so we've sort of been interested in pursuing the possibility of making it possible, and that's kind of where we stand at this point. And I understand now that if the zoning change is approved, that it requires the construction of a fence. I had only become aware of that after the last meeting here last month. I was informed of it on the parking lot, so that's a new consideration, but even though we don't particularly need it or want it, we're willing to if the rezoning is approved, to do what would be required by law. And I'm willing to take any questions.
Commissioner Ritz?
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
Commissioner O'Donnell, you have any questions for the applicant?
I hope you understand my concern regarding the signage.
Oh, I absolutely do. I was thinking in the days when my father was practicing dentistry, doctors and dentists, because of the laws of their own profession, they could not have a sign that had anything more than their name on it, and the letters couldn't be more than like about 2 inches large, so you wouldn't have had a problem. But now I noticed that has changed, and I was thinking about the big problem. It's not so much what happens immediately, but I think you're concerned about the change. 50 years from now, there's still the change. So I was wondering if, assuming the doctor winds up buying it, and that's not, we still haven't really totally worked this out, but assuming that either I or the doctor or somebody in this near future still could agree that there wouldn't be anything more than what you would find appropriate. And then if the council or whoever would be could get around to doing a more general and more permanent addressing of the code that they were discussing that might need to be done but can't be done immediately. Maybe if we don't put something up real big to start with, and if you get that permanent thing in place while there's only a small sign there, then there wouldn't be a grandfathering problem or anything, and maybe it would take care of it for the future. That's just a thought of mine, but you guys know more about how that might work than I would. But I mean, I agree that that's a problem, but there's only so much I could do, of course.
Understood. I appreciate your flexibility.
Anything else?
Any more questions?
No.
Commissioner Ransom? Any questions?
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
I actually have a zoning question about the fence. Is it just for the parking lot, or is it the whole property?
It's the portions that abut a residential district.
It's a buffer requirement.
So it's going to be to the south and to the east.
Does it have to be a fence, or can it be a planting of hedge or anything like that, like a buffer zone?
It says a 6-foot tall solid fence will be installed and maintained along the property boundary abutting the residential zoning district. They're also required to do a landscaping vegetative screen around their parking.
And if you'd like, we can, if you want to take care of it, Zach, we can address the sign question that Commissioner O'Donnell asked just previously. Thank you to John Clapp for finding that so quickly for us.
Go ahead, Zach.
So section 17.44.040 is called conditional zoning. Upon the zoning or rezoning of any land or lands pursuant to the provisions of this chapter and Article 66B of the Annotated Code of Maryland, the Board of Commissioners may impose such additional restrictions, conditions, or limitations as may be deemed appropriate to preserve, improve, or protect the general character and design of the lands and improvements being zoned or rezoned, or of the surrounding or adjacent lands and improvements, and may be upon the zoning or rezoning of any land or lands retained or reserve the power of authority to approve or disapprove the design of buildings, constructions, landscaping, or other improvements, alterations, and changes made to or be made on the subject of lands or land to assure conformity with the intent and impose of the zoning ordinance. I apologize, it's a really long sentence.
So if we could make that more plain spoken.
So basically, you can, at the time that you make your decision, basically the conditions imposed by the decision of the Board of Commissioners shall be made public concurrently with the decision. So if you vote to grant the zoning, you can make a condition of the granting the zoning, your requirements for the signage.
Terrific. Okay.
The only thing you can't grant is basically a change of use because it's not allowed, but the sign you could.
Terrific. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clapp.
Is there any other questions for Mr. Balancino? Anybody?
Second person.
Okay. Is there any other person here speaking for the Emma Gardens? Sarah, are you here for that?
Yes. Well, he can go ahead and speak, and then I can last.
John Allen Riley, 16722 Annandale Road in Emmitsburg, Maryland. I'm an internal medicine geriatric physician and hospice physician in the state of Maryland, practicing concurrently. Medical director for Heartland Hospice. I am in talking with Neil and Joe about the property. I actually grew up in a dental office in Georgia, in Wheaton, Maryland. If I could purchase and you guys, agree on the change to commercial, maybe a covenant could be added to the deed of property to restrict the size of the sign forever and put that on the property. It could be done. I do internal geriatric medicine throughout the state. Usually do home calls, and I do that all the time. I'm looking for a place to put my roots. And that's simply what I want to do. I'm also working currently with the state of Maryland to set up a hospice, a limited hospice, and that is being worked on currently with the state. If I practice, I'll be practicing in the 602, and the rest of the house may be a hospice house. And if the state doesn't go along with the complete program that we're offering, I may live in it, or we use it as a assisted living for the dying, which can be set up. That's another thing. But I may end up living into it because I live up here on 1672 to Annandale. Any questions for me? I grew up with signs, and even my sign down in Tall House was no bigger than this. So I have no plans for big signs. Just a sign where you know it's 602 and open.
For the sake of clarity, would assisted suicide be part of the hospice care? I know they
No.
seem contradictory and therefore.
No,
Okay.
that's totally against that.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Riley? Anybody? Joe?
No, thank you.
Elizabeth?
Thank you.
Glenn?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Riley. Sarah?
You have a microphone we could take to her?
12 First Avenue
No, we have anything.
and Gardens.
She needs to ask her to come up.
And,
Sarah, can you come up to the mic?
not very well, I'm
Oh.
just getting out of the hospital,
Oh.
so.
Do we have a mic to her?
I don't know if the mic will go.
It won't.
Will it reach?
Well, I can try to talk louder so you all can hear me.
Try that.
Is that okay?
We can try. We won't know till tomorrow.
Can you come up front and sit, Sarah?
Can we move the chair up in front?
I don't know if it's bolted to the floor. Some of them are bolted to the floor.
Okay.
Close enough.
Should be.
Let's see what we can do.
Thanks, man.
My name is Sarah Miller, and I'm 12 First Avenue in Emmitsburg. And the side of my house is at the rear of the Baldacchinos. So I'm right next door, so to speak. I have no problem with having the doctor's office there. That is not my concern, because I never had a problem. My parents bought the house in '56. I've been there most of the time since then. There was, when the dentist was there, never a problem, never heard a peep. My concern now is the fence. Now, when we moved there, we were not in town, because the bridge, the creek is where the town limits stopped when we moved. Now, the fence, if you put it up, it's only about 5 or 6 feet from the side of my house. And I have a problem with that. I know you've got it marked off, it's been surveyed, but I don't see any survey from the end of my property in the back to Main Street. There's no little flags or anything. There's also a 10-foot easement allowing for because there's a telephone or a pole back there to let your power line, cables, whatnot, to go back that way. Now, if you put a fence, where's the fence gonna be? Because you have that 10-foot easement is there for all of Emmett Gardens along that stretch. And you were saying if you put a fence up, you might even put trees and shrubbery on the side. Well, what happens if that little piece of property right there is sold? What are you gonna do with the fence? Are you gonna have to move it again? you know, if he would sell part of the back or something like that. And my son lives at 48 Second Avenue, and his also abuts the property. And he couldn't be here this evening. But he is also, he said he has no problem with the office, the doctor's office. It's the fence that's the problem. Now, like I said, we were not in town when you all did,